Yes.
Where did you get the idea for the book?
So I attend a lot of conferences. I've been writing since like 2010-ish, so like almost 10 years. And this wasn't my first manuscript. The first manuscript that I wrote, I was pretty sure was going to be the next New York Times bestseller, you know, and it wasn't, and I still haven't sold that book. So, but I have attended a lot of writing conferences, and one of the ones that that caught my eye is the Writers Police Academy, and that's put on by Sisters in Crime, and they had moved the conference up to Appleton, Wisconsin, which is like 2 hours from my home. I'm like, I'm going. And the Police Academy is great because it gives you the experiences that police officers and first responders have to, like their training and different things. Like once I got to intubate a head, a sort of plastic head thing. And so there's police officers and,
Intubate like with a tube?
Yeah, exactly like that. It was not easy. But anyway, one of the speakers there is Catherine Ramsland, and she talks about, she's a clinical psychologist or criminal psychologist, and she's like testified in court, and she's written like 65 books on criminal psychology, among other things. And so she was talking about children who killed. And that was when I first got the idea for this book. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, it's a great conference. You get to shoot guns and stuff. Yeah.
It's very Texas too.
Yeah. The one thing I wanted to just, is there another question?
Yeah. So Morgan and
Karen.
they're the two women that had just meeting for the first time after the same man. We don't really quite know.
Right. So
So
Karen,
Morgan's the detective.
yeah.
Okay.
Karen and her brother have been estranged for, what did she say, 18 years? How many months?
55.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so she hasn't seen him, but she knows where he is, and she's looking for him. And but he's the, yeah. So he's the one suspected of killing Hallie Marks, who you heard her name mentioned in here too.
The hammer.
With a hammer, yep. And so Morgan is looking for Eckert, but he's gone missing. And he disappeared shortly after 1 year of college in like 1989 and before the internet and all of that stuff. And so they are having trouble finding him. Thanks. I just want, oh, go ahead.
I had a question about how do you develop your characters and like get inside the heads of each character and give them their own unique voices?
With this book, it was pretty easy. I knew Karen right away. And my detective character, I needed a counterpoint to Karen's weirdness. Because Karen really loves numbers. She prefers numbers to talking to people. She, is an accountant at the Indiana Office of Accounting, so she does audits and stuff like that. I write a lot about each character. I use a positive trait thesaurus and a negative trait thesaurus to kind of come up with their personalities. And then I'll write a lot about each character and their background in like a journal or something. And then I go with it. I'm a pantser. I don't know if you know what that means. Yeah. So I don't plot out any of my work. I don't really sometimes know what's happening before I write it.
Let it find you.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
fun.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if you can say anything about your own, like, real life experiences that have led to
To writing?
this story.
To this story?
Yeah.
No, I would say there are no real life experiences in this book, but because I placed it in Indiana, I know a lot about Indiana and Indianapolis, that the background is there for that. But I'm not a criminal psychologist, and I was never a detective. So I did study a lot about that before writing the book. The only thing I was going to talk about the cover, because I love this cover, and I actually got my publishing contract through Twitter. So I never had an agent or anything like that. But my publishing company, they did everything here for me, which is awesome. That's what they're there for, right? But before I got my publisher, I had been talking about self-publishing, which is a completely different process, and you have to do a lot of the work yourself. You design your cover, you do the formatting, you do all of that stuff. And while I was thinking about self-publishing, my son is an artist, and he had come up with the idea for the cover that there's a woman's face, and she's looking into a mirror with all this broken glass around her face like this. And we did not share that information with Crooked Lane. They came up with this on their own. I know, we were just like, what? So, and part of that is because my original manuscript was titled Fractured Girl, for a lot of different themes that are in the book. But I thought that was just interesting that they came up with the same idea for the cover that we did.
Why is it called Fractured Girl? Is it about the...
Well, if you think about the murders are all hammer blows to the face. And so there's that fracture. You know, there's the psychology of, I'm not going into like split personalities or anything like that, but how we change and how our personalities get changed by events, and also how we can tend to focus on one thing too much, and how that messes up the rest of our life. So, yeah.
Will you share a little bit about your path to writing as well, kind of your journey?
I'm a serial artist. I'm a musician first. I went to music school and I teach piano lessons, but I've always loved drawing and just making things. I make jewelry. I've done creative furniture painting and all kinds of like just whatever I can make with my hands. I love it. I love cooking. I love interior decorating or whatever. And writing, I've always written like in journals, or I had a blog for a really long time that was a lot of blah, blah, blah about me, which nobody ever wanted to read. So, but it sort of evolved into, you know, this storytelling. And I first knew that I really wanted to write was when I started fantasizing about vacations alone with my laptop.
I know my mom feels that.
Tracey, can you talk a little bit about your writing group and how that has evolved?
Well, I'm in a couple of different writing groups, and so I mean I think it's really important for every writer to have critique partners and people who look at your work and share your work and everything. The one that I'm in now has one of my good friends who finally retired from her job, and she used to work in publishing. It also includes a retired lieutenant detective from the Madison area, and she's helped a lot with my developing of my Morgan character, and another friend who just is getting published this year too. So the four of us have completely different writing styles. I'm writing this mystery, The detective writes true crime and mystery, and another writer writes fantasy and YA fiction, and Diane, our friend, writes historical fiction. So it's kind of a great mix because none of us are like in competition writing the same things. But everyone sees something different too, so we all give each other comments and you know, just help each other get better, which is great.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone. To sign up for my newsletter, I have the first chapter of the book printed out, and I'd be happy to sign that for you since there aren't any books here today. And also I have a copy of my grandmother's sugar pie recipe. In case you've never had Indiana sugar pie, you have to try it. So, one more thing, if you sign up for my newsletter, you'll be entered in a drawing because I love giveaways. I'll be giving away an audiobook of Best Kept Secrets in April.
Oh, wow.
So, there you go.
Thank you.